Well, what's going on, everyone? of course, it's like Calico last week is like, okay, so 10 minutes is too much. So I reduced it down to 5 minutes today. She comes in at 0 seconds. And oh my God, it's too long. Well, welcome to another stream, y'all. So glad you are here. So some stuff has happened, and I have made some upgrades to my setup. So we've got some really cool stuff. I think is really cool. So I got a new overhead camera, so that everything is going to look a lot better. I've got some new lighting, so it's going to make it easier for me to see, and hopefully better for y'all as well. So with that, let's just go straight into the camera. So this is so much better. In my opinion, the colors are better. It's just nice and sharp and no crisp. I know for a fact there is audio calico because I can see it on my monitor. And I have Twitch pulled up as well. So, yeah. Talk louder? I would rather not. Because I'm already almost peaking on my volume meter. So, but anyway, we've got this awesome mini here that I 3D printed. Kind of a Gandalf kind of character in my opinion, but it's really cool because it's got this book that has like magic and stuff coming out of it. And I thought it would be really cool to use this to do some what's known as object source lighting. Let me change something really quick. My focus is a little bit off. There we go. That's better. Yep, exactly. It's Gandalf from Harry Potter. I'm just gonna ignore the hate that was intended for. So anyway, I thought it would be really cool to do some object source lighting. So obviously, starting off here, we did our Zenithal highlight, like I pretty much always do with miniatures like this. But the highlighting is done from the kind of source lighting that we have on this book. So if we look there, it looks bright white, and if we turn it around, it's almost completely black. So we're going to do a cool object source lighting to where the book is the source of the light, casting some sort of color light. I'm thinking green, just because green is a cool magic-y color. Obviously, because this reminds me a lot of Gandalf, we're going to make all of his clothes gray, and then we're going to have some fun trying to do some skin tone that's a little bit older, right? So I'm going to try to make his skin look the age that this character would be, which is not something I've done before, but I think it's going to be a cool little experiment. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start with a base coat on the clothing with London Gray by Vallejo. So let's get some of that on the palette. And this is going to be our base coat. Might help if I actually have my dabbing cloth too. Add a little bit of water because Vallejo is a little bit thicker than I'm normally used to as far as paint consistency goes. So we're just going to make sure we get some nice coverage from this gray to start off with. And so like we normally do, we're going to start off with this, but then we're going to work our colors up just that we're going to get kind of a cool gradient on the back. Now the back is going to be a little bit different than the front, obviously, because the front we're going to have all these awesome highlights with cool colors coming from the object source lighting. Now, one of the things that you'll notice I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint the miniature as if this was the only thing I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to do the source lighting afterwards. And the reason I'm going to do that is Even though the light has color, the light is still going to bring out certain aspects of whatever color is already there. So we're not actually going to be... So like if I were to shine a green light on a gray cloth, that would act different than if I shined it on like a blue cloth or a red cloth, right? And so the goal here is to make this actually look like something's there, as far as the lighting goes. And one of the reasons why I thought this was a really good candidate for object source lighting, besides the fact that it has that really cool book and that actual source that we can use for the magic effect, it has a lot of folds and things like that on the cloth that I think would catch light, and it would just be super interesting looking versus maybe more of a flat cloth or something like that. Hold on, there's no place like home isn't even like a nerd reference. That's just like pop culture, right? Unless you would consider the Wizard of Oz to be nerdish or nerdy. Fair enough. I mean, I don't know. Like, for instance, like I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just stuttering right now. It's weird. I'm on. So I've started taking ADHD medicine because, you know, I want to have a normal life. But one of the interesting things that I found is that my brain doesn't go as fast as it used to as far as like processing what I'm saying, but my mouth isn't used to it yet. So I will start talking, my brain, normally it's like my mouth can't keep up with my brain, but now it's the opposite, which is super weird. Well, it's very simple. What you do is you go into a well-ventilated area, and you do not sniff glue. Lesson over. I'm sorry. Okay, so you have the glue in your hand. Instead of taking the cap off and sniffing it, you just put it on a table and walk away. I mean, if you walk away, you don't have the glue, so it would be hard to sniff, but you could try. Never said it'd be fun. By the way, what's up, coffee? Welcome to the stream. So ironically, Coffee, I'll refrain from saying your name like I did for Stormtrooper XL multiple times. But it's good to see you here. If you have any snarky comments, please feel free to chat. I think you and Calico would get along in that aspect. Might help if I was in frame. No problem, man. I just appreciate you being here. Feel free to lurk all you want. So this, right now I'm kind of seeing one of the benefits of the zenithal highlight that I used here. So if you can see, which you can with the new camera setup, you can kind of see it. The gray here that I just put down, even though it is the exact same shade, the exact same consistency, is actually several shades brighter than the gray down here. And so we're gonna get a lot of those natural wow. Okay. We'll let that one through just because it's matte, but that's hilarious. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, you can see like the brighter shades there. That's one of the advantages of doing a zenithal highlight, because you get all of these natural highlights and shades that you wouldn't normally get, and it makes a really nice guide for hold on one second, there is for highlighting later. Give me a second. There is a little piece of support material that I 100% missed on the bottom of his beard, so just gotta break that off real quick. I don't care where it's from, it's still hilarious. Yeah, so like The Office, everybody loves The Office. For me, I don't enjoy cringy humor, and because The Office is pretty much just cringy humor, for me, it's just not my thing. Coffee, we need to get you on the Trials of Imagination server. I think you would really like the folks there. What we really need to do is get you watching Trials of Imagination, because it's amazing. Matt over here is like home brewing an even more terrifying version of Curse of Strahd. Yeah, it's great. So imagine, like, in the last episode we found like they're in Vallaki, and they met the Baron. So imagine the Baron in his cockiness and his kind of like who he is in the module, but then give him actual real magical power and make him actually dangerous. Thank you for the follow, Coffee. I appreciate it. I'm now, what, 21 followers away from affiliate, I think now? Something like that. We're getting there. But also taxes, yes, very terrifying. I just finished mine. Wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I thought I was gonna owe like a lot of taxes, because I normally do. Because for some odd reason, even though over the past 2 years, even though I've asked my employer to take out the maximum and even had them take out more than the maximum I ended up owing. But this year I didn't. I actually got a refund of all of $49 from the state of North Carolina. I'm gonna be rolling in the dough, my guy. But also taxation is theft. Just throwing that out there. Just gonna throw it out there and let it sit. What's up, Cal? How you doing, man? Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm never surprised when I owe North Carolina taxes because North Carolina's taxes are ridiculous. But I'm always surprised when I get charged federal because I'm very similar to you. I've always gotten money back from feds. So I'm going over with a second coat here just to make sure that my first coat is nice and consistent. I'm gonna keep this coat a little bit thinner than before just to make sure that I'm not covering up those nice highlights from the zenithal. Basically all I'm doing here is I'm trying to make sure that any area that looks inconsistent or splotchy or anything like that is covered. Yeah, so I think part of the issue for me was at the time when I owed, I had 2 jobs, and so they were taking out 2 totally different amounts because of the tax brackets they would have put me in. So one was a part-time job, taking out part-time taxes, but then once I filed for both, you know, it was obviously a lot more. And so I started, like, I think for state taxes for the part-time job, they were only taking out like $50 a paycheck, and so I increased that to $120 per paycheck, which is almost, at the time, I got paid twice a month, I think it was, or I can't remember if it was twice a month or every other week, but anyway, and so that was at the time like a third to almost half my paycheck, and I still ended up owing, which is really frustrating. Well, Cal, that would be awesome. The only issue is I'm not affiliate, so I don't actually make money on stream, so I can't consider it a business. Well, when you're king, you should know such things. Alright, so I'm trying to think of what color. Like, obviously I want his beard to be gray, but I don't want to use the exact same grays that I'm going to with his cloak, even though honestly it would look fine. Probably what I'll do is I'll go ahead and paint his beard using the same grays, but then I'll add like a dark wash afterwards, which will you know, pull it down by a shade or two. So we'll just go and slather his beard with some of that gray paint. And also, once I do some of the lighting effect, it's going to look very different as well. Yeah, so it's 50 followers, an average of 3 watchers. You have to stream on 7 different nights and have a total stream time of, I think, 15 hours, something like that. I've met all of the requirements except the follower count. I'm 21 followers away from affiliate right now, I believe. I was 22 before Coffee followed me, which, by the way, never thought I'd say that Coffee gave me a follow instead of me following Coffee. Not because the person Coffee, just Coffee in general. For context, if I slip up and say the gender of this Coffee person, it is because she is my sister. So I don't think that's too much information to know, since most of y'all don't know my name, so how would you know hers? So we've had my sister on now, so who is Coffee, and then my brother as well, who is the Stormtrooper XL character that was on a couple nights ago. So this is becoming a family affair. It's weird. I'm also streaming on Facebook. Facebook analytics are weird because they'll tell you how many people watched, but it's like Twitch where it doesn't show you who watched, which is kind of bizarre when like I'm streaming to my personal account. So like I know who's watching, or like the names of people who are watching. It's kind of weird, but ooh, what color do you think he's got? These cool feathers in his hat. What color do you think I should paint those? I'm thinking like a really pretty blue or something like that. Or should I paint them up like eagle feathers or something? Cal always has good ideas. He's the one who made me do, or suggested that I do the pirate hat like human skin, and it turned out really good. Well, seeing as how we were raised together, yes, I am 100% assuming your gender. All right, so I'm gonna read this out loud just because I don't want to sit here and read it to myself while being completely silent and not doing anything. So, random story of the day: while eating Mexican for lunch, my waiter saw that I was watching an Elden Ring video and asked me if I was a gamer, which started a convo. Then she asked me if I streamed, so obviously pulled up some content and was like, yo, this dude Stormer is gonna DM this one shot tomorrow. She immediately went and followed. Allegedly will be tuning in. Freaking awesome. And I'm 2-bit, I'm not surprised at all that you identify as an attack helicopter. Like, I feel like even though I haven't known you long, that's really been where your life was headed. I mean, I just kind of sensed that you were an attack helicopter when you started shooting missiles into random civilians. Oh wait, an American attack hopper or a Russian attack helicopter? That's the question. Except the bark is extremely pitiful into an empty lake, right? Alright, so now that we have base coated his coat, I'm going to do these arm wraps. I'm thinking for the arm wraps, I'm just going to do kind of that... where are you at? There we go. Canvas look that I normally go for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some dust color and this leather brown by Reaper Paints. Typically gives me kind of that yellow canvas color, and I think it really looks good. I mean, to be fair, Kobe Kobe'd himself into that cliff. Alright, right, so I'm just using this to add a little bit more color, even though we're going to be so colorful by the time we do the actual lighting effects. All right, man. Lurk away. Is that a frog emoji? And by emoji, I definitely mean emote, because I'm not, you know, an internet newbie, even though I totally, definitely just said the dumbest thing I've ever had in a while. Which happens when you're streaming and you feel like you have to talk all the time, or else it's boring. That's a question for y'all. When you guys go onto a stream, how soon, like how often does the person have to talk before you just leave? Like you discover a new stream and the person doesn't say anything for like 20 seconds, do y'all just leave or do y'all stay? And does that depend on the content? Because there's a lot of like content coaches, I guess you could say, out there who would say that if you are not talking to your audience, even if it's an audience of 1 or 0, then your stream will never grow. Well, yeah, I guess that's true. So like if somebody's playing guitar or drums or like doing stuff like that, right? So like the was it the 32-bit drummer, or is that his name? I think it is. Or the 8-bit drummer, I'm sorry, the 8-bit drummer. Like, he wouldn't have to talk when he's in the middle of a song, right? All right, so I'm gonna get a bit adventurous with my skin tone. And the reason why I say that is I really want this skin tone to look aged. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a bit of tanned flesh, which is, for me, one of the best undercoats for skin because it's slightly red, and it gives it a really nice kind of look to it. But yeah, that's definitely fair. Like if I'm watching somebody play Call of Duty, I don't necessarily want them to be constantly talking. And with something like this, if I was acting like an FPS streamer where I'm like screaming into the microphone, you know. So anyway, I'm going to add just a touch of blue to kind of get a little bit of a purple-ish skin tone. And the reason why I'm doing that is a purple skin tone kind of signals age a little bit more. And so in all the shades and the recesses, like the bags under his eyes, are going to be slightly purple. The places where the light doesn't hit, things like that. Now, when I say purple-ish, I don't mean like it's going to be purple. I mean it's going to be very, 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 very subtle. Like that. Oh, you can't see because of the light, but that's a little bit better. So you see, that's not purple. That's still very much so a skin tone, but it's got just a tinge of purple to it. So we're switching over to our number 1 brush. First, do some nice detail work on the face. Actually, I want to add just a little bit more blue. Well, don't really know what to say to that. I think part of it too is so the kind of microphone I have is just like a standard like broadcaster style microphone. So it does really good up close, but I have like the gain like slammed so that I can keep it like away from me. Because one of the, for those of you who are here early on in the stream, you know that like I still had it where I normally keep it when I'm gaming, and I would constantly like hit my head against it or bump it around and it got in the way. So see, I like that skin tone. Now, obviously, this is just going to be our first layer, so this is not going to be what the skin tone is going to look like when we're finished. But it's a good start. And then we'll do the same on the hands. I'm going to try to get really fancy with this particular miniature because I think it just looks super cool. So I'm gonna do things like, or try to do things like age spots, bags under his eyes, and make him look like he's actually old, in an old wise wizard, instead of just making it look like normal skin. Can you see a close-up of what my left hand is doing? So like, so all I'm doing is just very gently and carefully painting this little hand here on the staff. Now, so my new camera has a physical zoom and physical focus, so if I move it up, it's not going to autofocus. But all I'm doing is just making sure that I give a nice base coat to this little hand here. Oh, what his left hand? Okay, yeah. Sorry. So his left hand is, I don't know if you can see that. His left hand is kind of holding out and like summoning out magic out of this book. So that's what my light source is going to ultimately be. So the kind of smoke, fiery stuff that's coming out of his hand is going to be pure green. And I'm going to paint it as if that green is being cast up into his face, on the bottom of his hat, on his clothes. It's going to look super cool. Well, it's because I'm trying to paint and read and think, but all of that can't happen at the same time in my brain, unfortunately. I think it can't happen in most brains, but that's a nice boulder. Cool. Now, one thing about his eyes that I find incredibly frustrating about this model, it's a really cool model, but his eyes are kind of squinting, which makes sense because, you know, he's got kind of this wind effect all around him. And eventually it's going to be a very bright light, but that means it's going to make the eyes so incredibly difficult to paint. I mean, they're normal miniature eyes, even at this size, are difficult, but his are like half that, and they're squinting, so it's going to be super frustrating. That's actually, yeah, so so Coffee, that is a struggle that I've had to deal with quite a bit. You get really good at learning how to change the direction of an eye without actually redoing it. But to your question, Cal, or to your suggestion, Cal, I actually really like that suggestion. I think that would look pretty cool. So where almost like his hand is like going through some form of necrosis because of what he's doing with the magic. Where like maybe this was a wizard that ran out of components for a certain spell, and in the moment of chaos, he decided to sacrifice his own like life force to make the spell work. And in doing so, is imbuing him a piece of him into the spell. So instead of, so almost like a wizard becoming a sorcerer, where he is actually imbuing his own natural magical energy into the spell versus some sort of component. And that's the cool thing about fantasy, right? So first of all, I don't think I've told you, I've mentioned this on the stream before, but since there are some new folks here, I always like giving backstories to my miniatures while I'm painting them, because it kind of motivates me and like makes me think about their story a little bit more. And I really like that idea of this wizard who is so desperate in the moment that he gives some of himself to the spell. I think that's a really cool concept. So I like that suggestion. The only reason why I don't think that would necessarily work in the case of this miniature is because if his face was burned, his beard would be too. So maybe we can kind of make it seem as though it's traveling up towards his face. Yeah, I think we can figure out some way of communicating that through other means other than actually painting it onto his instead of like physically painting it onto his face. I think we can do something with that. Ooh, you know what? How about we do this? Instead of doing a burn, how about one of his eyes are like white? Like it's gone completely white because the life energy that he's imbuing into the spell is not only like his hand is like the most obvious place that it is happening, but he's also being consumed from the inside out. Ooh, yeah. I like that. Well, so I'll have to figure out how to do that. And again, this is one of the cool things I like about painting, especially doing things that I've never done before, because I like that concept. I just don't know how to communicate it yet. So I can experiment and see what I can do. So the only reason I'm saying I don't know how I would do that is because he's got these arm wraps on. So let's see. How could I make it look as if there's magic coming through his arm wraps? Like obviously I can do that on the skin on his hand. That's not too difficult. What I could do is, instead of doing that with paint, I can't remember what it's called. Is it like goo glue or something like that? I think it's what it's called. It's a very viscous material. And what you do is you can take like a toothpick or something, dip it in the goo glue, and string it. So what if almost like a spider web. So if I could like maybe string some of that from this like up his arm or something like that, I think that would be really cool. But we'll have to figure that out later because we're not there yet. We still have to finish base painting everything. So I'm gonna take a little bit of red here just for the inside of his mouth and to start the eyes, the process of the eyes. So for those of you who have been here before, you know that what I like to do with eyes is I'll base coat the eyes in red, and then I'll come back and paint the eyes off white except for the very corners, because if you look at your eyes, the whites of your eyes don't go all the way to the corner, inside or outside corners. It stays a little bit pink. but pink doesn't show up very well, especially on small eyes. So I use a red instead of pink. But it makes it look a little bit more realistic when you have that breaking of the colors. Ooh. Okay. So that's perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the arm wrap and I'm going to base coat the arm wrap in the green, and then I'm going to take a dry brush and dry brush the material over it. So all of these little bits in the wrapping that look like they have lines or spaces in between it will be green, but all those raised portions will be the color, and it'll give it that idea that, yeah, the light is breaking through. Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, that does make sense. I think the only issue, and again, that is a very good idea, and I think I can maybe come up with a creative solution to make that happen. There's just so little skin on this miniature. And that's almost like how like some guitar manufacturers, how they make a guitar look weathered is they'll put like a green coat over like a sunburst, and then they'll sand away the sunburst over a large area, and then they'll sand down the they'll sand down the green so that it exposes the undercoat. So yeah, that's definitely like something you can do. Because I'm also trying to think, like, this hand would be so incredibly bright that, right, because it's right next to the light source. The top may not be. The top may be a little bit shadowed. Yeah, we'll definitely think about that and see. So this is what I love about the painting process, right? Like, it's not just, hey, I'm gonna do the same thing I've done 1,000 times. Like, y'all have given me some really cool ideas, and now I just have to think about creative solutions on how to actually solve the problem that presents, right? So it's not just artistic, it's also like problem solving, figuring out how to get a certain effect using the tools that I've kind of developed over the time that I've been painting. Almost said over the years, but I don't think I've been painting for years. I think I've been painting for a year. Okay, so I'm gonna put on my my nerd glasses real quick so I can do the eyes. I look like Trailer Park Boys. That's because your cats are crackheads. Well, I should say all cats are crackheads, but you know. Yeah, this is gonna... These eyes are not gonna be fun. So this brush, which has probably... Yeah, exactly. Look, it helps me with eyes. Okay? You can judge me all you want, but you cannot argue with the results that I've gotten from using that. So literally, so you can see the point on this brush is so incredibly fine. That literally was too big for these eyes. So I'm gonna have to, this is a number 1. That's a tiny brush. I'm gonna have to use a 0 or like a double aught. Holy cow. No, this is a 2. It's a 2, so I could probably use a 1 maybe. We'll see. All right. All right, we're gonna have to do some repair on the skin tone around the eyes because we, of course, got some of that red on his eye, around his eyelids. All right, and I apologize if my big head was in my way. Okay. All right, so I don't know if y'all can see this really well. There it is. Those two little red dots, those are his eyes. Yeah. Nortgord. All right, so we're going to take a little bit of this gray. I'm going to do his eyebrows real quick. They're nice and bushy and big, as a wizard should be. That's one thing interesting. Have you ever seen like a old wizard in like some of the old high fantasy that actually had well-trimmed eyebrows? No, they're all massive and bushy. Well, I will let your husband comment on that, and I will leave it alone. All right. Cool. So let's go ahead and do the I'm trying to think, because I've got a special paint that I could use here. I don't know how nice it would look, but I've got a fluorescent green by Vallejo Color. What do y'all think? Fluorescent green, or just try to go for the effect naturally? While you discuss among yourselves, I will go ahead and base coat the his leather strappings and belts and stuff, and his staff. So for the leather, we're gonna go with Earth Brown by Reaper, which is kind of like my go-to brown paint for leather. And for his staff, I'm gonna use Reaper's Muddy Brown, just to give it more of a mahogany. Yeah, that was kind of my thought process, right? Because this is supposed to be something that's super like foreign to who he is, right? So it's you know, he's not a sorcerer. A sorcerer is not intrinsic to him, and so yeah, I like the idea of it being foreign, and so I'm going to use more of a muted palette on the rest of his clothing and leather and all that. But then we have this bright fluorescent green bursting through, bringing life and color into his life as it slowly drains it away. If that isn't completely depressing, I don't know what is. I wonder what he's casting. He's not casting Fireball or anything like that. Do you know one thing that's going to be fun about this is all of these little metal buckles and stuff. He's doing the non-metallic metal on all of that. That's going to be a joy. Because unlike the pirate, I don't think this wizard would let his gear rust. And so it's all going to be nice and glossy and shiny. Actually, that would be interesting to do. But I've got, you can ask the crew here, like I've done so many really interesting miniatures. Like, so some of the Trials of Imagination characters, I had offered to paint their minis for them a while ago. And I finally got around to finishing them all, but a couple of them I did on stream. And so like their backstories, that was a fun project because number one, I rarely use reference photos for everything, right? I'll use reference photos for like, what does metal look like? What does rust look like on such and such a material? But having a reference photo for the actual character, it was really fun and interesting and something I hadn't done. But it was also cool not having to make up the backstory. But like I've got the skeleton pirate that I could do a backstory for that we kind of already did, right? The backstory was like he was a pirate seeking after treasure and ended up sacrificing his soul, and became a servant of the god of the underworld. And as a result, all of his clothes have rotted away over the years. So his clothes are actually the clothes of the people he's killed, that he just stole off of them. And his hat is made from the skin of those who he fell. Ooh, yeah, like flame blade, or it could also be maybe like a spiritual. Well, no, that spiritual weapon's more of a cleric thing. So I need y'all's opinion on something. So recently, WizKids, who makes D&D miniatures, they're really well known because they were probably the first company that was able to make really high detail miniatures out of PVC instead of metal or resin. And they're extremely durable and fairly high detailed as well. But they just came out with a series called WizKids Frameworks. So for nerds like me who like Warhammer 40k and modeling and like to assemble miniatures off the sprue, i.e. Sprue being basically just a slang term for the mold frame that companies use to actually do the injection molding. So D&D hasn't really had something like that until WizKids came out with it. So they did a series, and I bought a couple of them. One of them that I was thinking about doing on stream is a Minotaur. It's really cool looking, and but it's a smaller miniature. It's not one of these 32mm ones that I've painted on stream. But then I also have another 32mm one that's a Githyanki. I've got a Githyanki, I've got a Buccaneer lady. What else do I have sitting over there? I've got a mermaid. Yeah, so those are the four options. So mermaid, pirate or Buccaneer lady, a Githyanki warrior, and those three are in the 75mm version, and then I have the 32mm Minotaur, which looks super cool. I'm curious because he looks like he's shouting something. Does Green Decay have a Semitic component? Am I saying that right? I don't know. Whatever. You know what I mean. Does he have to move his arms? Because I would think, since he's using the book in one hand and his staff in the other, that he would not be able to actually cast something that would require like tracing out a sigil or something. Oh, you're talking about the let me check Loot Studios website real quick. I would like to. There's a nice arm shot for you. I believe it is called the Queen Harpy or something like that. I own it, so I know I could print it. Lady Harpy is what it's called. The Lady Harpy. But it is massive. And when I say massive, I mean it is a full-size ship for 32 millimeter miniatures. So it would be larger than my desk, and I would not be able to do something like that and paint it on stream. But yeah. So let's transition back to my bigger brush here, and I'm going to base coat his staff with this nice mahogany mud brown. But Loot Studios also just released a new pack. Well, I say just released. They release a new fantasy miniature pack every on the first of every month. And I also got the latest one is like a gladiatorial arena, like a full-on arena, along with a bunch of gladiators and creatures and stuff. It's so cool. So I might pick something out of that as well. By the way, the Githyanki is also female. It is a female Githyanki. I don't know. I think I didn't mention that, but yeah. But anyway, so yeah, we got a female Githyanki, a female Buccaneer, and then the mermaid. Which honestly, I'm unsure if I want to do the mermaid on stream because the mermaid is a little bit. It's a mermaid, so it's not exactly. I don't know how you'd say that. It's not inappropriate, but it's kind of scantily clad, I guess you could say. It's not like it's not like pin-up status by any stretch of the imagination, but no, there's not a ton of cleavage. It's pretty far away from being like a pin-up model. Loot Studios, one thing I really appreciate about them is their female miniatures are typically very well done, right? They don't really do a whole lot of like overtly sexual models, with the exception the only exception to that is if the character that they are portraying is supposed to be. And so what I mean by that is they did one based on Medusa. So they did a Gorgon. And of course, Medusa, the whole reason why she was a Gorgon is she was cursed for the gods for being so beautiful that she, I can't remember which god came down and bedded her, but that was the whole reason, right? She was so incredibly beautiful that the gods, the female god, I can't remember her name offhand, wanted to prevent her from being able to, or anyone from being able to look on her. And so the whole point was that she was so beautiful and so alluring that the gods became jealous. And so they did a Gorgon model that was fairly pin-up-esque, right? Proportions weren't like insane, but I think that was the only model where I'm like, yeah, I would never paint that on stream, or probably not even at all, mostly because I know I have people come over to my house. I'd rather not have a really awkward model like that sitting around. Even though models like that, as much as this sounds like a cop-out or an excuse, yeah, Athena. As much as this sounds like a cop-out or an excuse, models like that are really, really, really good for learning how to do skin tone well. Mostly because there's a lot of skin. Just like the other day when I did that model, the ASMR that got featured on Loot Studios Instagram, it had a lot of non-metallic metal. So it forced me to actually learn how to do non-metallic metal. And I got really good at non-metallic metal. just by doing that one model. And so doing a model that has a lot of skin showing helps you to become better at skin tones. So I probably am not going to paint it because there are other options, right? I can do a male model. But why male models? Or like a barbarian or something like that that has a lot of skin showing to practice skin tones. It doesn't have to be a inappropriate model, right? Which is why I probably won't paint her. Because I don't have to. Yeah, was it Zeus that was allured by what is not wanting to paint an inappropriately modeled female figure? Alright, so what color do I want for that? Because I want to paint the back of the book like a leather color, but I don't want to use the same shade of brown over and over and over again. Well, so it's not necessarily the double standard of women can't show their chest, but men can. It's more of I want the stream to be to kind of be family friendly to an extent, and most people would find a model like that at the very least uncomfortable or insulting. So it's less of I don't want to show female chest, but I do, but I'm fine with male. It's more of I want people to feel comfortable on the stream, and it is more likely for people to feel uncomfortable with a 30-year-old man on the internet painting female boobs. And then from just like a personal conviction standpoint, I don't see that that is edifying for anyone, even myself, when there are other options for me to practice skin tones. So if it is inappropriate, makes people feel uncomfortable, and I can avoid it, I will. Don't remind me, because you're not that far behind me, Miss 28 years old. No, wait, you're 27. Right? No, you're 28, right? I don't know. 94. Yeah, you're 28. Jeez. I blame the ADHD. Yep, a year and a half until you're officially old. And then you'll turn 30 and you're like, nah, officially old is 35. And you'll turn 35 and you're like, no, you know what? 40 is old. And you'll turn 40 and you're like, man, I'm getting kind of old. And then before you know it, you're 60 and you're actually old. So right now I'm just using the dust color that I combined with the brown earlier to do this wrap. And then what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to increase the brightness of it so that it looks like it's worn. And this yellowness is going to be kind of the undercoat, if you will. Who's your... Well, I'm not going to ask because we're on stream and it's the internet. What about a wizard? I'm confused. What's going on right now? I mean, that's no news, but you know. I am painting one, yes. Okay, so we've got some things here that I don't know what to do with just yet. We've got some leather pouches here, and for that I'm just going to use this pure leather brown that we got up here, kind of this tan color. These may not be coin purses, they may be like, what would you call it? Component pouches. But we're going to paint them as if they're nice and worn, so kind of a tanned leather versus a finished leather. And then we'll come back with a Agarax Earthshade wash, which is a brown wash that I've started using, and that will make it look a little bit older. Holy cow, oh my god. So, okay, this is my excuse, all right? So this is the weird thing. In Streamlabs, both of your names are the same color. And we have, me and Calico and Liam had this discussion a while ago that for whatever reason, my brain associates the color of the name with the person, right? So I didn't read the name, I just saw blue and assumed it was you. And I've done that before. I don't know why my brain does that. But hi Liam, I am sorry for confusing you for coffee. Yes, I am painting a wizard. And it's cool. All right. So let's figure out what we want to do with these potions and this dagger. And then we also have like a scroll bag here. I want this scroll bag to be colorful. I want it to be maybe something like a deep violet or a purple, I'm thinking. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to use 2 shades to begin with. I'm going to use burgundy wine, and then we'll follow that up with alien purple. So this is a nice, almost black purple, and then we'll finish it off with this very bright purple. And because I don't have a mid-tone between the shade and the highlight, I'll just mix these two, and that will be our mid-tone. So for those of you who are new to painting, so you've got 3 different kinds of shades. You have mid-tone, or I'm sorry, you have shade, which is your darkest tone, your mid-tone, which is literally exactly what it sounds like. It is the color that your object actually is, right? So if you're painting green, and so like a dark forest green or like an olive drab might be your shade, and then like a leaf green might be your mid-tone, and then maybe a yellowish green will be your highlight, which is the third one. And your highlight is only really going to go where you think the light would hit. Ooh, I've got a lot of medium and not a lot of pigment on that. I didn't shake it up enough. I used very little purple, so that purple has. There we go. Yeah, that's the only thing that I don't like about paints like this, because this is, so you've got different kinds of paints. You've got paints that are what are called single pigment paints, and single pigment paints are paints that, it's pretty self-explanatory. It has a single pigment in the medium, right? And so those single pigments are very, very good for color mixing. They're very, very good for general use because they don't separate on the palette. And what I mean by that is if you have a paint on a wet palette specifically for too long, the heavier pigments will sink to the bottom, the lighter pigments will go to the top, and then you'll notice that the medium, that's the thing carrying the pigment, in this case it's an acrylic medium, you'll start to see it around the edges. With a single pigment, you do have a little bit of medium separation, but it's not as bad. So the big advantage to single pigment paints is the fact that when it does separate, it's easy to mix back in, and it's easier to mix different colors too. When you have multi pigment paints, you can end up with unforeseen reactions between different colors. And I don't mean reactions as in like a scientific reaction, but like if I were to mix a purple with a blue, for instance, that I have more of a violet, I guess you could say. If it's a multi-pigment, then there might be some sort of pigment in that paint that reacts with the blue in a way that does not give me the color I want. And so you end up having to mix in other colors, and then the more colors you mix in, the more likely it is that if you need more of that paint, the less likely you are to get a good color match, which means you either end up with patches of paint that are of different shades, or you end up having to recoat everything to get a consistent shade. So single pigments are significantly better for mixing because you don't end up with that inconsistency. And as usual, when I'm base coating, I really don't care as much about getting colors on different parts of the miniature, because I'm gonna have to go back and paint in another layer anyway. Not really. I mean, I could paint it black, right? If it is a grimoire, it could just be a spell book. Or it could be some sort of like, I don't know. It could be a couple different things. What is the difference between a spellbook and a grimoire? I feel like grimoires are more like necromancer based versus like a normal spellbook. I don't know if I'm right in thinking that, but I don't know. It just seems like you hear more about grimoires when you're talking about like things like the Book of the Dead or something like that. Even though, for those of you who are familiar with history, the Book of the Dead was actually just a funeral book. It's not a magical book. Beats me. Now, one interesting thing about this is it's got a really cool design on it. You can kind of see if I hold it like that. So this, I'm going to add a dark shade over it to kind of bring out some of that. So this is not the final color. This is just the first coat. It's going to end up being probably quite a bit darker than it looks. And I'm going to want it to be darker because it needs to contrast the brightness of the light, right? So one of the things that you'll notice that if there's a super bright light backlighting something, so right, this is going to be backlit. Even though without that light, this might be that color. When that bright light happens, immediately that looks dark, right? Because of the contrast. And so I might end up painting a lot of this, or at least glazing it over with a darker color or black or something like that to make it look like it is being, well, like it's like the light is bright. And I was telling Coffee this the other day. One technique that you can do and use for making something look darker, and this is really common in anime if y'all watch anime, and that is you don't actually paint the shadows as black. You paint them as really dark blue, because the color contrast as well as the brightness contrast makes it look more real, even though in real life shadows aren't blue, they're black, or whatever, a darker color of whatever it would be normally. Also, Coffee is a massive, massive D&D nerd, so y'all should talk to her about stuff like that too. All right, do it. Yeah, I could do that. Actually, so I don't think I want to do it like a Necromancer's Grimoire, and there's a reason for that, and that is this other model that I am not going to be painting on stream. I have it off to the side here, so I will show it to you. But so Loot Studios gives rewards depending on how long you've been a customer. And so they start off with a 3-month reward and then go 6, 9, and a year. And the year is the last one. Well, I've been with Loot Studios for a year. So I got the 12-month reward. And the 12-month reward is... oh, absolutely. And you're also ADHD. So you've definitely hyperfixated on it. And you're definitely going to talk for at least 6 hours on it. The only reason... Why do I know this? Because I'm the same way. Anyway... There's the ADHD because I completely forgot what I was talking about. So anyway, so I've got the 12-month, and this is why I don't want to do this guy as a Necromancer, because this boy here is a Necromancer, and I don't want to have multiple Necromancers on my shelf. So this guy has got a Grimoire that I am painting black. He's got the zombie arm coming out. He's got the Grim Reaper going. And the light source from his book is going to be bright red. So I'm going to paint this guy up as the Necromancer, but I don't want the Wizard to be a Necromancer. If that makes sense. I'm not sure if it does or not, but that's just where I'm at. So let's do one of these potions as a health potion. So we're going to paint these little windows red. I'm actually going to do my best to not actually paint over the little cages around it, because I'm going to assume these cages are metallic. She is not, and I know for a fact she's not because she's my sister. She needs to be because the dungeon's an awesome place. So there is a couple different things, Coffee, that when you get the chance, when I get the chance, I'll send you some links to. There is the Trials of Imagination server, which even if you don't watch Trials of Imagination, there are a bunch of really cool people who play video games. Oh gosh, that looks so cool. I'm sorry, hold on. And then the TRG dungeon, which is a bunch of people from a Discord called Reformed Gamers. They broke off and started basically a D&D group. And they're all a lot of good people too. No, he's not talking about mine. I'll send you an invite, Coffee, to a couple. So he's talking about, Liam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're talking about the TRG, right? The TRG dungeon? Yeah, so the TRG dungeon is exactly what I was just talking about. It is basically a bunch of gamers, Christian gamers, got together and created a D&D nerd channel. And that's actually... No, actually, I didn't meet y'all in the TRG. I met y'all in the Reformed Tabletop Discord. That's where I didn't meet y'all there. I first saw the stream there. All right, so we're gonna paint this other one up as a mana potion, even though in D&D there's no such thing as a mana potion. You know what? I just thought about something. So Beth, I knew that was going to happen eventually. Coffee, gosh, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, had an idea earlier, and that is to write a full backstory for this character and then a one-shot. What if I started doing a one-shot for every single character that I've painted? So we'll do a one-shot for the Festering Troll, for the Skeleton Pirate, for the Wizard, and then for... I'm already doing one for Elbereth tomorrow night. And then I'm already going to be doing one for Mark as well in the near future. So what if I did one for every character that I paint? And then when I release the final photos on all of the Discords that I usually post them on, I can also share like a Google Doc with the one shot. With, or at least stat blocks. If I don't do a full one shot, I might not do a full one shot for every character, but I might do stat blocks for each character and like their backstory. I think that would be kind of cool. So, so far what we've got is that he is in some sort of situation where his life and his party are in complete peril. And so, in order to save them, and he ran out of components, and so he's very desperate in trying to defeat whoever he's fighting against. And in doing so, he has essentially overpowered himself to the point where he is consuming his own life force, or the spell is consuming his own life force instead of a component. And he's doing so because he's so desperately trying to fight off this evil and to save his friends that he is willing to sacrifice himself to save them. So that's the backstory that we have so far. As far as like his life and adventures, that has yet to be determined. Yeah, essentially blood magic. Except he's obviously not using it in a evil, quote unquote, way. He's using it as a means to save his friends. So I'm gonna mix up a really quick batch of kind of a reddish purple for his lip. I say his lip because there's only one showing. The rest of it's covered by his stash. Yeah, he absolutely assumes that it's going to fail, but he is willing to put himself in harm's way to save his friends. Which can probably go back to his backstory a little bit. There is a support right inside of his mouth that's really bugging me. It's small enough so that it's not really affecting anything, but my OCD is going absolutely crazy right now. My hobby knife is in the other room. I'll do it off stream. But yeah, he knows it's going to fail, and he knows it will probably kill him, but he's willing to try because he wants to save his friends. All right, well, go clean your kitchen. I say that as somebody who desperately needs to clean their kitchen as well, but instead I'm painting miniatures. One of the few things Adderall has not helped me with is the ability to not get very easily distracted or hyperfixate on stuff. Which I didn't expect it would. Because one of the things that I think I didn't think of before I started taking the medicine, but kind of did afterwards. And that is that medicine, like Adderall, especially for people with ADHD, can help with our symptoms, but it doesn't help us break habits, right? So like, I have created, because I am ADHD, certain habits that are not detrimental to my life, but like that I need to kind of change, right? So I need to create meaningful habits and get rid of habits that are preventing me from doing the things that I need to do, right? So one of those is not cleaning my house on a regular basis. And one of the things that Adderall can do, for me at least, is it will help me. I shouldn't say it will help me create better habits, but it will make it easier for me to create meaningful and longer lasting habits without being distracted, or it being a hyper fixated phase where I'm hyper fixated on cleaning my house, but then a month later it's no longer there because it was a hyper fixation. Yeah, mine is a lot of my hyperfixation is based upon I don't know how you put it. A lot of my hyperfixation is based around my executive disorder. So executive disorder, for those who don't know, is essentially your brain literally reflexing away from tasks. And so I hyperfixate on hobbies so that I don't think about those tasks that are super mundane and I don't enjoy doing. Now that's not purposeful, but that's something that can happen. So I'm going to change something real quick because I have autofocus on my main camera, and it's every time I get in closer, back away, it keeps changing. But anyway, and so creating those habits of trying to do what I need to do and breaking the habit that I have of task avoidance. Do you know what? That side knife, even though this is not Gandalf, that side knife looks a lot like Sting. I don't know if y'all can see it, but it's got kind of that W shape to the handguard. It's got that same flare that Sting does in the movies. Now that I think about it, I think he also, this guy came from a pack where there was a treant that they actually got a cease and desist letter from New Line Cinema because the way that the treant's beard looked was too close to Treebeard's from the movie. So they actually received a cease and desist order to change it, and they did. And so what a lot of people have done is they basically said, if you want and I'm not saying the manufacturer doesn't do this, all of the fan base and customers do this, is they will say, if you are on the Facebook page or Discord and you are asking for those old models, and you can prove that you own that pack, we will send you the older model because everybody likes that one better. So just a bit of community aid when it comes to that. So I'm gonna crack open some white real quick so that I can fix some mistakes that I made on one of these little vials. What do you mean frames? Was I out of frame for a second? All right, so looks like the bag, I don't think I dropped frames. My CPU's fine. My encoder's fine. Everything looks fine. If I did drop frames, that'd be a little bit odd because I'm not even playing a game. I have a 2070 Super, so my GPU's plenty fast enough to handle streaming. I mean, it could be on my end and I just didn't realize it because I'm not really concentrating on. I figured my frame rates would be fine. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my midtone for my bag here, and I'm just going to make sure that only the deepest recesses of all of these different folds maintain that darker purple color, the burgundy color. Otherwise, it's getting the mid-tone. And similar to what we did with the festering troll in his loincloth, you can see we've got like some stitching here on the side. Well, you can't really see it because it's pretty dark. But there's some stitching on the side here that I will then go back through with a shade and do some recess shading on that. So recess shading, basically just taking a wash and ensuring that the very, like that line that goes across there has depth to it. Well, you shouldn't sniff glue because it can kill you. Unless, of course, you are an air traffic controller for the movie Airplane, and then you definitely picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. I mean, the title of the stream is How to Not Sniff Glue. So, okay, first of all, Lava, I would love to see you try, and I 100% believe that Calico would kick your tail. I don't know why, I've never met her in real life, but I 100% believe that she would absolutely destroy you. All right, so now I'm taking my highlight color and I'm just going to hit the very tops of all these little folds. Basically, I'm kind of doing an edge highlight, if you will. I really need to replace some of this Army Painter paint that I use. I find that it does not flow off my brush well. And so it takes me so many more passes over a model to actually get it to stay like I want it. I never had that problem with paints like Vallejo or Reaper, only with Army Painter stuff. With the exception of their new speed paints. Their new speed paints are actually quite good. I don't really use speed paints, but I bought some just to try them out. What do you mean you wouldn't remember getting glued to a seat, or you wouldn't remember sniffing glue? Or you wouldn't remember kicking Lava's tail? I'm kind of confused about that sentence. All right, so now I'm going to take some more of this dust color, like I normally do for parchments. Dude, so Minecraft is one of those games that I have a love-hate relationship with, because I will play it for like a week and have a lot of fun because it's basically like building a Lego set. But then I get bored and change to something else, and then make fun of anyone who has ever played Minecraft ever because it's dumb. But then I'll go back and play it like 2 minutes later. I'll tell you one person who absolutely loves Minecraft. And Lava, you haven't met him yet, but he's been on stream a couple times. My brother is big into Minecraft to the point where like he runs his own Minecraft server. Like he has tons of mods and stuff. Like his base is just absolutely insane. I think you two would actually get along pretty well as far as that goes, like just because your love of Minecraft. He's in my Discord server. Just look up Stormer or Stormtrooper XL. Alright, so I'm going to look up a reference photo really quick because I cannot for the life of me remember what color cork is. I have in my mind what I think it looks like. Okay, so kind of just a woody yellow kind of look. Okay. Only reason I looked that up is I think these stoppers on the top of these bottles would be cork. So I'll just use that same kind of leather color because that's pretty, and I'll mix it with a little bit of this tan just to kind of get that woody yellow color. And then we'll just paint a little bit of that on the top of these bottles. What color should I make the string? All right, so I will be right back because my rinse water is getting super dirty. So you guys just make sure he doesn't move. Be right back. All right. Old man noises. Yeah, it did look nasty. All right, so I do believe that it is time for some fluorescent green. I gotta shake this up really, really well because I have used it maybe once before. And I haven't used it in a while, so it's just been sitting. Look at that. Look at that bright color. Oh my gosh. It's kind of out of focus, but like, I don't know if you can see that, but it is bright, bright green. Holy cow. All right, so we're gonna do something that Cal recommended, or thought of, I should say. Didn't necessarily recommend it, but it was his idea. So we are going to paint his whole arm, like on the wrappings, fluorescent green. Holy cow, this is so bright. And then, ooh, it's very, very low saturation too. That is not gonna bode well. At least for what I'm trying to do for the arm. For the rest of him, that's actually gonna work out really well. So I might have to do multiple coats here, but so what we're gonna do is we're gonna base coat this in fluorescent green. Then we're gonna come back with a, what is that doing to my brush? Good grief. I swear if I just ruin my brush using fluorescent paint, I'm gonna be mad. Yeah, and it's a Monument Sable too, so it's like a freaking $15 brush. Which may not sound like a ton of money, But when most paintbrushes range from like $1 a piece, $15 for a brush is actually quite expensive to ruin trying to use fluorescent paint. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to go back and I'm just going to keep painting it until we get a nice saturation. I'm going to clean this up a little bit too, because one of the things I want it to settle in the crevices, but I don't want it to be like gloopy and thick. So when most of the time, whenever you're painting, you really want to paint in multiple thinner coats, especially when you have a lot of detail, fine detail like this. So like on his, like on the back here of his cloak, there's detail, but it's not like super awesome big detail. So I could use a thicker coat of paint on that. But then when I got to his hair, I really wanted to thin that paint down a lot, because I don't want that clumpy paint, thick paint to actually start clogging up all those nice details. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting the actual flame, and we're going to use that fluorescent green again. And again, we're going to use multiple coats. Don't really care right now if I get it on his hand or on the book or anything like that, because I'm going to be painting that, or at least glazing it in that same color anyway. The top of the pages are going to be the exact same color, because the light, it's so close to the light source that it would be the same color. So we're just going to base coat all of this in fluoro green. While I do this, can somebody look up and see if fluorescent green or using fluorescent paint is bad for a natural hairbrush? Because I think I might have just made a mistake. Give me a second. I don't see anything on this, so why did my music stop? I don't understand why music stopped. Get back here, music. All right, cool. There we go. So the fluorescent green on the arm is almost dry. It's dry enough for a second coat. This stuff dries pretty quickly, so shouldn't be a problem. Kind of blowing through this really quickly. Synced lyrics? What does that mean? So is that like, oh, is that like when lyrics play like on Spotify? Like when you're on Spotify, it plays like, has the lyrics there? Gotcha. So, well, welcome back, Matt. We are almost completely finished base coating him. So now we're starting in with a few of the lighting effects before we move on to finishing up his base coat. So I am painting in fluorescent green paint on his arm and on the flame. So I'm doing kind of Cal's suggestion from earlier, in that I'm painting the wrapping on his arm as fluorescent green, and then I'm going to dry brush the original color onto it, and that will give us this kind of, it'll kind of look like it is coming out of the, like coming out of his arm or traveling up his arm. At least that's what I hope. It might simply look like the same kind of color effect that we're going to be doing on everything else, but we will see. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the original skin color that we started with, that we added blue to, which is this tanned flesh. I'm going to use this kind of as my mid-tone for the skin. So what I'm going to start doing is anything that is pointed towards the sky is, to start with, is going to be highlighted. So kind of thinking that my primary light source is going to be this magic, but then we'll have a secondary light source being le sun. So one of the interesting things about skin is skin diffusion. So even though I'm kind of painting this as if skin reflects like an actual hard surface, it won't. Because of the way that light diffuses off skin, often the transitions between the light and the dark are significantly more hard to tell, right? So if you look at, for instance, my face, I have very little light on this side and I have a bright key light here. And you can see like there's a little bit of like shadow on the top of my head here, but the transition from really, really bright on my right cheek to very dark on this side is actually a very smooth transition. And it doesn't really look like it should, right? So like you would think this half of my face, or I'm sorry, this half of my face where the light is would be bright and then this side would be shadowed, but it's not. Really only the top of my head is, because the way of the light is actually diffusing through my skin. And that's one of the hardest things that I found to actually get right, is that amount, how much diffusion do we get? So like when I'm painting these highlights, where's the green from the flame actually going to stop? But that's why we do stuff like this, so we can practice. One of the things that helps, and I don't know if Coffee, I know Coffee said she was lurking, but if she is still listening, I might actually at some point get her to teach me about applying makeup, because believe it or not, that is extremely similar to the way in which you want to apply highlights to skin on miniatures. And you can kind of use makeup guides to guide how you actually do things like facial highlights, blush, things like that. And it's ironic, people have made fun of me for saying that, but it's like, what better way is there to learn how to do skin tone correctly than somebody who literally, spends time on making their face look like the skin tone that they want to have. So it makes a lot of sense to have somebody teach you how to apply makeup that applies makeup. So we're going to go ahead and start painting up the highlights on his face. And one of the things I'm doing, I'm leaving a lot of the spots like under his eyes, I'm leaving it in that original skin tone because I want it to look like he's got bags under his eyes. Dude, Carson, long time no see, man. How you been? It's good to hear from you. What's it been? Like at least 4 or 5 years, something like that? Yeah. Dude, I hope you've been doing all right, man. Where y'all at? Well, I won't ask that because it's the internet and you never know who's on there. But well, thank you for stopping by and joining us. Painting up a super cool wizard here. So right now I'm just using this color here to start outlining some of the highlights that I want on his cheeks. One of the things that while I'm doing that, while I'm thinking, is I want to use it to do an opposing highlight. And what I mean by that is all of the lights, or all the areas where the highlights from below, from this green light source that we're going to put on here, all of that will be kind of a counter highlight to what that's going to be. So trying to think through where I want to put these highlights as well as where the next highlights are going. Eastern Tennessee, huh? Awesome. Well, I am still living in Raleigh. So what are y'all doing out there? Are you working at a church or? So context for those who don't know who I'm talking to, he and I used to go to the same church plant when he lived in Raleigh. Or I guess you were living in Wake Forest at the time, right? I don't know if how well y'all can see that, but I'm making some good progress on that. So while that dries, I'm going to go ahead and attempt to get his eyes done. So one of the things that I do with eyes, and one of the things that you'll notice if you kind of take a picture of your own eye and then go into something like Photoshop or something that has like a eyedropper tool to where you can do like a color select, your eyes are never actually white. They're very off-white and almost like a pinkish red. What in the world? There we go. And so I use a color by Games Workshop called Pallid Witch Flesh. And it is kind of an off-white, a pinkish off-white that works really, really well for eyes. So I'm putting my nerd glasses back on. Give me 1 second. Now that's the screenshot right there. So I went ahead and grabbed a number 1 brush. I was using a number 2 brush for the eyes earlier, but we'll try it with this and see what we can do here. That's not bad. I'll do the same thing on the other side. If my hands would stop shaking. It's not going good. There we go. Not bad. Need to do a little bit of cleanup here. So I'm going to take a little bit of my red, go back and do some repairs real quick. There we go. There we go. That is actually looking really nice. So I'm going to take the opportunity with me and these nerd glasses on and just kind of check out the face, see if I've got any gaps in my paint's coverage, do some repair work. There we go. All right, now time to get caught up on chat. All right. Yeah, exactly. My brand. But yes. All right, so that's looking nice. I'm going to bump up the brightness on some of my flesh tone here because he's looking more tan than he is old. I want him to look old instead. So I'm going to bring out some of this color called Rosy Shadow by Reaper. And I'm going to take a little bit of the Barbarian Flesh and I'm going to mix it in just to darken it up just a touch, that we're not totally removed from our original skin tone. And then I'll add a little bit more of that blue in just to get just a touch of that purple color going in. Pull on a little bit more brightness. There we go. And we'll go in and just kind of trace back over what we just did with the Barbarian Flesh. Again, giving it that counter highlight from where I think the other highlights are going to go. So I'm not prepping this miniature. Sorry, I'm still getting caught up on chat a little bit. I'm not prepping it for a game. So this is a just straight up display miniature. I do have some minis that I need to paint for game prep. I've got a couple of games that I'm in. So I'm playing a game, or I DM a game, or I DM a D&D game. So we're doing, group is going through Wild Beyond the Witchlight live, so in person. I was doing a Wild Beyond the Witchlight campaign with some friends online as well, but unfortunately I had a lot of like work schedule changes, so unfortunately that has kind of fallen through, which stinks because I really like that group. And then I'm also playing about to start playing through another campaign. I'm not exactly sure which campaign it is, because the DM basically just told us the setting. I gave some information about the setting and laid down some like rules for character creation, but otherwise has not told us which campaign we're playing through. Which I kind of like, because now I'm going in completely blind, not really knowing exactly what I'm going to be doing outside of what my character would do. Which I always find it so much more enjoyable to play blind, because like if I already know what's going to happen, that takes all the fun away. Because there's no like so specifically D&D. That's the game that I'm prepping those for. But this guy, he's gonna go on my shelf my shelf of minis back there and just look cool. I don't know, you know, maybe one day if I get to the point where I get big enough, I might do a giveaway. So like maybe one of my painted miniatures, I do a giveaway. And all right, so what I want to do now is the skin tones on the hand are looking a little bit too contrasty, and so I'm going to create a glaze real quick and just smooth out some of these transitions. Again, remember when we're glazing, we're always moving towards the color that we're glazing to. So whenever you're glazing, when you lift up your brush, that is going to be the highest concentration of pigment. So if you're not glazing the entire area, always move towards the color you are glazing to. And that should help you avoid things like water or pigment lines. And it should make it a little bit more controllable. I think the stuff on his face looks fine for now. Obviously, a lot of this is going to change the moment that we start putting in the lighting effects. All right, so let's go back to our fluorescent colors, and we'll go ahead and put another coat on now that it is dry, just so that we can crank up that opacity a little bit more. Now, one interesting thing about this this paint is it's very glossy. So one of the things I'm going to do, and I'm going to have to do this off stream because I use an airbrush, but I'm going to finish this miniature in a matte varnish, which of course, number one, will protect my paint job from anything like chips, nicks, anything like that, but it will also dull all of this shiny stuff so that it's all super consistent. I personally prefer a matte finish on my miniatures, because with gloss, semi-gloss, and satin, you end up with light reflections on the paint that kind of make it difficult to see the stuff that you intentionally actually put on. So it makes it look more like the lighting, right? So like, I can't explain it exactly the way I want to, but imagine like you did a transition from dark to light on the hood of a car, right? And then you applied a gloss to it. So you go outside, well, the reflection of the sun on the car will make that transition from light to dark completely invisible. So same thing with a miniature. If you are painting the miniature in gloss, then the light reflections will completely erase all the work you did doing your actual highlights and shades. Holy cow. Hey, Mom. So, my mom just joined the stream. I didn't even know she had a Twitch. So, hi, Mom. I'm glad we got the discussion that we had earlier about not painting certain kinds of miniatures before she joined. Well, welcome to the painting stream. Thank you so much for the follow. Believe it or not, it actually helps because quite a bit. Well, I appreciate that, Mom, and thank you for joining me and coming and watching and supporting me. That's means a lot. Also, if you would like, gotcha. Okay. The party has arrived. So, well, I'm painting a wizard, so I've base coated everything. So basically I've gotten it the color I want, everything the color I want it, and I'm starting to do some of the effects and things like that. I'm kind of did some of his skin tone already, like his face. We're also going to start doing mid-tone and highlights on the clothing and cloth and stuff like that. So we're going to transition to Vallejo's light gray for our mid-tone on his, that's kind of weird when I shake the paint, it like has the, anyway. I'm not gonna lie, I find it completely amazing and awesome that you're here, Mom, but all of a sudden, I don't know why, I got so much more nervous. So we are going to start doing some of the highlights. So this gray tone is going to be our shade. So we're actually going to get quite a bit lighter, almost to white. So the final highlight color on the cloak is going to be this sky gray from Vallejo. Oh, I'm not nervous. It's just, yeah, I'm kind of nervous. I don't know why though. I have no idea why. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and start getting some of these highlights done. So very similar to what we did on the bag earlier, we are just going to make sure that the sky gray, or not sky gray, what was it called? London fog gray, is only exists in the very deepest recesses, because that's really just going to represent the shadows that are being cast by our light source. Everything else is going to be, at the very least, this lighter mid-tone gray, and then we'll transition over to our highlights after we're done that. Not gonna lie, Matt, that is actually somewhat true, although I'm pretty sure she's my mom, so she knows the kind of mischief I get up to, regardless of whether she sees me do it or not. So that's just one of those things that moms do, I guess. She's like, I know you well enough that I know exactly what you do. Yeah, exactly. European cars don't go as far left as this guy. I'll have to remember that one, Matt. Oh, that's funny. All right, so, and as always, this is not going to look great until we get to the very final phases of the highlighting and mid-tone portion, but that's okay. Trust the process and it will not let you down most of the time. Sometimes it does, but in those cases it's not the process that lets you down, it's your I say my use of said process. Yeah, that is true. On somebody, so actually, me and my mom do have similar senses of humor, but I probably like how to put this, like the way that I form jokes is closer to my mom's humor, but the content of my jokes is definitely more of my dad's humor. So my dad has more of that kind of inappropriate or dark style humor, and my mom's humor is definitely not even close to that. But the fact that my dad is a paramedic slash firefighter slash just all around hero, kind of explains why he has a darker sense of humor. Well, all I have to say is, Matt, my mom and I do not like the same movies, with the exception. Oh, Mom, you remember when we went and saw what was that movie called with Will Ferrell? It was like one of the few movies that Will Ferrell's you said you actually enjoyed. Watson and Holmes. It was the one where he was like trying on hats and then he tried on like a red fez and it said "Make Britain Greater Again." I swear it was like a packed theater, but you and I were the only ones actually laughing at it. It was hilarious. Okay, so the question there, Matt, is do you like Tremors because it's a good movie, or do you like Tremors because it's so bad it's good? The answer is yes. I'm pretty sure that is the correct answer too. I haven't, although I've definitely heard of it. It was fun. It's funny because Velocipaster was like a meme for quite a while, like right after it came out, and then people stopped talking about it, and then TikTok brought it back. It was the weirdest thing. Because I don't remember exactly when it came out, but I feel like we were talking about it in college. I'm pretty sure that would have been a movie like Cody or Anthony would have like forced us to sit down and watch just because they thought it was funny to torture us like that. Oh, speaking of which, Cody moved to North Carolina. He lives like 2 hours away from me now, which is extremely dangerous. Because now we can actually hang out together, and when he and I hang out together, it's one of two things. We either have the deepest conversations either of us have had since Bruton Parker, or he gets really drunk and I laugh at him. Oh yeah, there was even a part in Velocipaster, if I remember correctly, where like at the very beginning he was supposed to have like lost his parents, but it literally just he like says, "Oh no," and then it pans to like an empty part of the street and it just says "put car wreck here" or "car on fire here" or something like that, where they didn't even finish the scene that they were filming. But so just so that because I know most everybody else here knows this, but for the sake of Miss Coffee and Miss 704, I do stream on Mondays and Wednesdays starting at 9. So if y'all are, Beth will probably, again, Coffee, I'm gonna have to, when I upload this to YouTube, I'll like bleep it out or whatever. Coffee will be, I know will be awake, but Mrs. 704, I'm not sure. But if you are awake then, feel free to come and join us again. Look, literally 30 years of calling you by your actual name. Forgive me if I keep forgetting in the middle of the stream that I've been doing for a month. See, with Mom, I have the benefit of having called her Mom for 30 years. So I don't have to worry about accidentally doxing her because I'm so used to calling her by her actual name. That is true, but that is also the consequence of us living almost 8 to 10 hours apart from each other, so. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that's probably true. But to be fair, every time that I come down to do literally anything in Georgia, I come by and see y'all. I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was Coffee talking there. So actually my mom only lives like 5 hours away. So that actually don't have much of an excuse there. Other than like prior commitments. To be fair. How much of the Letterkenny crew do we have here? Because Calico, you're Canadian, but you haven't actually seen Letterkenny, which is a tragedy, right? I think you were telling me that, or was that Lava that was telling me that? Because Lava belongs to the US's hat as well. Letterkenny is a kind of like Trailer Park Boys. It is a kind of a Canadian comedy, except Letterkenny started as a web series and got picked up, and now I think it's a I think Hulu owns it now. I think, and they're the ones producing it. But it's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. Completely inappropriate, so I don't recommend that anybody watch it. But if you have the same humor as me, which I absolutely know Calico does, you should 100% watch it. Oh, The Village is great. First of all, you live in Mississippi, so no, you have not climbed uphill in the snow both ways. You may have climbed uphill through the mud both ways. Or, like, walked outside during one of the, like, 13 tornadoes you had in the past week. Which one? Are you watching Signs? You're watching Signs, aren't you? So one of the things that, so when I picked out these paints, So one of the difficult things about picking out paint, especially if you're using them as mid-tone highlights and things like that, is trying to figure out whether or not the tones will actually go good together. So I think these tones do go good together, but I think this light gray is a little bit too bright. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna keep using it as my mid-tone, but I'm going to make sure that we use a glaze to start blending these in a little bit more. Normally that's not as big of a concern, but this is looking a little bit too stark of a contrast between the two colors. So I'm just gotta make sure that I blend these in a little bit better after I'm done. So now we just need to get Dad on here at the same time as Stormtrooper XL and Coffee and Mom, and then we'll be in a family affair, and then we can get weird. Start telling each other stories of our childhood. All of a sudden my viewership will drop to 0 because they're like, oh my gosh, this family is just odd. So I stream on Mondays and Wednesdays, starting at 9 p.m. because that's when I get off work. And I'll usually stream, depending on how I feel, usually around 3 hours. So I'll stream until around 11 p.m. or midnight. Oh yeah, I'm never, ever, 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 ever weird when only my family is around. But you will see a whole nother side of Stormer when I'm around both my sister and my dad. And Coffee can definitely attest to the fact that I don't think either of us have laughed so hard, except when my dad, and me just start cracking jokes. Like, we play off of each other's humor perfectly to the point where, like, it hurts. Like, one time we were in a really nice steak, well, not really nice, a decent steak restaurant in Augusta. And my dad, I don't remember what exactly he said, but he said something along the lines of, you can't embarrass me. Or no, I know exactly what to do to embarrass you. And my sister said, I have no shame. And my dad says, oh, really? And she just throws her arms up in the middle of the restaurant, flailing them out in front of her, just going, ah! In the middle of the restaurant during dinner rush hour. Funny, one of the funniest moments I've ever had the privilege of seeing. It was amazing. Also, how in the world, Mom, how are you up later than Dad? I feel like Dad was normally the one to stay up later than you. Well, I guess since he became chief, it's probably a little bit different now because he's got a lot more on his plate than he used to. I do, and you'll probably never see it because both of us will forget about it the very next time we see each other. Ah, gotcha. So, when my mom says I took a nap, that's code for I will not be able to get to I will not be able to get to sleep until at least 4 a.m. Prove me wrong. All right, Matt. Yep about the you not getting to bed, or yep about the story? So, just to let you know, Mom, and I'm sure you've already realized this because, you know, you're smart. There's about a 4-second delay between when I say something, you respond, and then it comes through in chat. Maybe a little bit longer, maybe like 4 or 5 seconds. So if I seem like I'm delayed in responding to you, that is why. All right, Mom. Well, I thank you so much for showing up. It legitimately means a lot that you created a Twitch account just to come say hi and to watch me paint. I really appreciate it. Love you, and I'll call you sometime soon because I just need to call you at some point. Article, yeah. Well, I hope you have a good night. And that, friends, was my mom. And those of you who know me well know that I tend to be a very genuine person, so like I just say what I mean, at least I try to, versus sugarcoating things. And when I tell you that it means the world to me that my mom created a Twitch account just to watch me stream, I don't think many people really realize, like, I love my mom to death, but like she completely removed herself from social media a while ago. And so the fact that she would create a Twitch account just to watch me stream and paint means quite a bit. Actually, did she, Beth, again, Jesus, coffee. Did she ever come back onto social media, or did she still like delete her Facebook account and all that? I can't remember. There we go. All right, cool. So, continuing on with this, so I've used the paints I've used, at least as far as brands go. I've used a lot of Reaper, and then I've used a lot of Army Painter, but I haven't used a ton of Vallejo. I've got a couple Vallejo colors. One of the things that I'm noticing about it is the finish on the paint is a lot more satin than matte. Which for me, like I mentioned earlier, I prefer a matte finish because it allows the details that you put into the paint job to show a lot better. And so like one of the struggles that I'm having right now is my lighting that's allowing you to see what I'm doing and me to see what I'm doing. You can see all those reflections kind of coming off of the miniature there. It's actually rather annoying. And it will probably get even more annoying as I try to blend these, the midtone with the shade. Because it'll make it a lot harder to see what's actually highlighted and what is just the midtone versus what the light is showing, I guess. Yeah. Make sure I am thinning this down enough. Because again, so one of the things that I love about Reaper paints is that they're pre-thinned. And so they're already out of the bottle, what I would call base coat ready. Meaning that you really don't have to thin it down out of the bottle to just start painting. You will once you get to your layering steps, which I'm doing now. But with Vallejo, it's a very thick paint out of the bottle. And so for me, a little bit harder to use only because I'm not used to it. Army Painter has a very thick consistency as well, but I haven't used Army Painter regularly in quite a long time. And again, the reason I'm putting all of this effort into doing this when like the very next time I actually start to do the lighting phase, a lot of this is going to be painted over. It's because, especially with this floral pink, as you saw with the arm and everything, it is actually doesn't cover that well, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to be adding more of a green tint to the cloth versus painting green over it, if that makes sense. So the coverage isn't going to be as good, which is exactly what I want. So, all right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some of this gray away. I'm going to mix it with some of my London Fog gray. And the reason why I'm doing this is it is significantly easier to blend two colors using a glaze if they are closer to one another. So I'm going to blend these two paints together and just kind of run it along the edge of all of the highlights that I just did to start the blending process. Because then once I start actually glazing, I may only have to do maybe a couple layers versus, you know, like instead of 20 layers, I might be able to get that down to maybe 5 or 10. Again, I need to make sure this is in frame. I know I've said this before, but there are like professional, well, quote unquote professional YouTubers who do painting who have a hard time keeping stuff in frame, so it makes me feel a little bit better whenever I can't. I'll switch over to my detail brush. Just so that I can make sure that I'm just hitting the edge of these highlights. So I'm not really looking to put like a big big line between the two, or a bold line I should say. All I'm looking to do is just add a little bit more of that dark color towards the edge, so that when I come back with the glaze, it is easier for me to actually blend them together. So I'm not really trying to be super careful about it, but at the same time, I am trying to be a little bit more precise. There are some areas that I'm going to put a little bit more, like right in here. Just so that that whole transition is right where I want it to be. Also, I love how the name of this the darkest paint I did is called London Gray. I definitely called it London Fog because I was thinking about the latte. I don't know if y'all have ever had a London Fog, but a London Fog is literally a latte, but instead of coffee, they use Earl Grey tea, and it is delicious. I feel like that was a super hipster thing to say, but I don't care. It's like, I don't drink coffee, I drink Earl Grey tea. So I forgot where the clip it button is, or I really wish I had clipped the moment I saw that my mom's username, because that would have been a really good TikTok. But I can go and grab it later. Alright, so one of the things I'm going to do with the robe instead of this skirt thing is I'm actually going to do exactly what I'm doing now. I'm going to start off with kind of an in-between tone between the darker and the lighter, just so that I'm not having to go back and do as much work as I am to blend the two together. Alright, let's start glazing. That's good. And as always, we are going to glaze into the color that we are trying to transition to. Always moving in the same direction. That will help you to avoid things like water lines, heavy pigment areas. I need a little bit more water. So one of the things that I'm doing every time I swipe, so I'm actually testing the opacity on my fingernail, so that I can kind of test and gauge what kind of coverage I'm going to be getting. Because the key with a glaze is you don't want it to be, you want it to be very transparent and carry very little pigment from the actual paint. You want it to be, start at a 50-50 mixture of paint to pigment, or I'm sorry, water to pigment, or water to paint, I guess. And that's your starting point. And you just want to slowly build that opacity up over many layers. And that will get you some nice smooth transitions from one color to the other. Now, one of the reasons why I went and did kind of that in-between shade color is going from a very bright to a very dark color, or going from a one color to another. So like if I were to glaze from red to blue, it is very hard to do that and get a good result without having some sort of mid-tone to go in between the two. Not really a mid-tone, but like a transitional tone. So when I'm coming from very dark gray to a very light gray, I want to have kind of a medium gray in there too, so that my highlights actually look natural. It's an interesting song. So I'm not getting the exact, I'm not really getting what I want out of this, so I'm going to try something risky. I'm going to take my darkest color. Now, one of the things you can do if you want to make transitions look really smooth is actually start with a darker tone and go into the lighter, because you get a better coverage with a dark tone than you do with a light tone. And so when you glaze with a darker tone, and just do an all-over glaze, meaning that literally everything is going to get glazed, like the whole miniature, you end up with smoother transitions overall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an all-over kind of glazing coat of this and see if I can't get those transitions nice. So I'm literally just throwing it on there, and if it doesn't work out, then I will just go back to my original coat, start over and try again. It's always a learning process. So never be afraid to just say, let's try it, and if it doesn't work out, I've gotten too far now to want to strip the whole miniature. So just add a thin coat of whatever base coat you were using. And just try again. So one of the things I need to do real quick is I'm going to kind of remove some of the glaze on some of these top parts, because I do want that highlight to come through. I just don't want it to be okay. That looks like it's actually going to look pretty decent. Why does that look brown? I didn't add any colors to it. You know what, I'm going to, because yeah, the more water I add, oh, that's, yeah, I know exactly what happened, and that's my mistake for forgetting that. So I actually did add, when I brought my brush over to that color earlier to pull some of it into another pile of paint, I 100% left some of that in the paint, so it actually changed the characteristics of that tone, which means I messed up, but I think it'll still look fine. So we are going to continue on with this experimental journey and see what happens. Need a little bit more pigment. So one of the things you should notice right now is I'm really trying to constantly move with the glaze. I'm kind of treating it like I would a wash, not the one that got speared in the Serenity. But trying to keep it moving, trying to make sure that we're not letting it pool into one single area. And then I'm using a wet brush before this, or more of a damp brush, before this really dries on the back to just kind of scrape away a little bit of that glaze on all of the high points, just to prevent it from getting so opaque that we lose the highlights that we already worked on, because really we want those highlights there, we just don't want them to be as bright as they were. At least yet, because we are going to brighten them up quite a bit once we get to our highlighting stage. One of the things I might do once I get to the overcoat, or not overcoat, the shirt, I guess you could say, so I'll probably dry brush that instead of using like a manual highlight. Just doing the same thing here. I'm just going to take my damp brush, kind of run it over these high spots so that we still get those highlights pulling through, or technically this is just the mid-tone. But yeah, I'll probably dry brush on the highlight on his cloak, and then dry brush the mid-tone onto the shirt area. So I think that looks a lot better than it did. Not completely there, and it looks a little dirty, and I'm fine with that because he is not a wizard that is in a study, right? He's a wizard that's out in the middle of combat trying to save his friends. Probably using telekinetic shove. Well, getting there, y'all. So, we got a lot done today. A lot of it was mostly detail work and base coating. We still got a long way to go. So, really quick, I'm going to grab my texture palette here. I'm just going to really quick throw a quick dry brushing on some of this just to kind of see what it's going to look like. So I'm going to grab my small and my medium dry brush. I'm going to grab some of my light gray and then some of my London gray. Start doing some mixes so that I can... Thanks, I appreciate it. Looks a lot better than I think it did just a second ago. So we're going to use this dry brushing to just grab a couple dots of those so we get a color that we like. That's better. And we're just going to start dry brushing this on the shirt here. We're going to have to do some cleanup on some of the details that we did earlier, but that's fine. And that's a little bit too dark, so let's add a little bit more of that lighter gray. Yeah, I think this is turning out nice. I like the direction we're going in. One thing you want to keep in mind, especially when you're dealing with grays and blacks and whites, it takes a lot of white to lighten, takes a lot of lighter colors to, or lighter tones to change a darker color. And it takes very little dark color, to actually darken a lighter color. It's one of those unique things. So like you could add half a bottle of white to black and get a gray, but you add a drop of gray to a white and you'll get this, you know, the same color. It's really weird. So I'm going to continue doing this dry brushing here on his cloak, just so we can get some of those highlights. You are my favorite sister. You're my only sister, but you are definitely my favorite sister. Well, I don't know. Stormtrooper might count as a sister sometimes. I shouldn't do that. He's not here to defend himself. Although he's my sister, so he might not be able to. I swear, if you send one more pineapple on pizza emoji, Calico, I will do nothing and still not eat pineapple on pizza because it is an abomination, saith the Lord. So something interesting is happening that I don't think y'all can see just because of the nature of the mini, but his right foot has come undone from the base. So he is literally being held on by one foot that has been super glued to this base, which is not good. So I'm going to bring in some more of this lighter color. And I'm going to use the pure light color to add the highlights to his hair, because I want the highlights to his hair to be a little bit more obvious and contrasty than the highlights on his robe. The highlights on his robe, I want it to look like a light source, right? The highlights on his hair and beard, I want to look like his hair and beard are actually that color. I have to be really careful around his face because I really do not want to mess up the work on his skin that I did earlier. So I was just thinking, I find it hilarious that artists and crafters give names to things, like really fancy names, to things that really don't need fancy names. For instance, this thing that I'm using now is called a texture palette. It's literally a piece of MDF board with laser etching it to give it a little bit of a texture. That's all it is. It's really nothing special. Which is hilarious. All right, so now I'm going to take some of this light gray, and which was going to be my highlight color for the cloak. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore, because after seeing how bright the last one was, what I might do, since I've now kind of created that texture, or that like middle of the road tone, I'll probably just use that pure light gray to do his to do the actual highlights, instead of using that as my midtone. This could be fun, trying to get his mustache. It is essentially, well, it's more like particle board because it's MDF. Yeah, same exact concept. It's just extra steps for what it actually is. So I'm going to grab a little bit of white, add that to my texture palette here, just because I really want his beard to stand out from his cloak. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to that sky gray, which is the lighter one. I'm going to add some of this to his hair. I'm just going to give it a really, really light dry brushing of that, because I want it to stand out, but I don't want his hair to come. I want his hair to come across as gray still. I don't want it to come across as white. So I'm just going to very lightly dry brush on this lighter gray. There we go. I like where he's heading. I talk too much. Grab some more of this glaze here and just do a little bit more work. Oh, that's not enough water on the front of his cloak, because I think the back looks fine. I think the front still has a little bit too much contrast. So I'm just going to glaze in some of these edges again. Again, going towards the color I'm glazing with. But I will say, because it's almost midnight, it is, yeah, well, it's midnight. We're going to be going for around 3 hours, so it's almost time for us to say goodbye. But I wanted to give y'all the opportunity to kind of influence where the stream is going to go as far as what we're going to do next. So like, obviously, I think I know Coffee said the Buccaneer lady, I believe. So I've got her, and I'll post pictures of all these miniatures on my Discord so that you can see what they look like, so that not just going by my description. So I've got the Buccaneer lady, the mermaid, and the Minotaur, and the Githyanki female fighter. So we can do any of those. I'm also going to be getting some character models from a game called Warhammer 40K. So those are going to be like, unlike these guys that I was doing the other day, where it's like a bunch of single miniatures, but they're all painted the same. What I would like to do is a single character. So it's going to be very similar to what we do with these guys. They'll just be smaller. So So if that's something y'all are interested in seeing, let me know. I'll be more than happy to go through that. But before we leave, I am going to really quick, since I've got my dry brush out, really quick, I'm just gonna make sure it's actually dry on my board here. I'm going to do the dry brushing on his arm there. Let's see what that looks like. So, so we're gonna use the dust color and the tanned leather. What movie are you watching? I don't think you ever answered that question. If you did, I didn't see the answer. Because you said you were watching an M. Night Shyamalan film, right? Oh, yeah. I heard that was pretty good. Alright, so we learned something today, folks. That doing the dry brushing over the arm didn't really turn out well. Didn't really look like I wanted it to. And beyond that, the green isn't actually showing up like I thought it would from in between there. It looks decent, and I'll share some pictures of it, see what y'all think. But what I might do is take some thinning medium or some glazing medium or just a brush and actually manually fill in some of these recesses. So I think it looks decent, but I don't think it was what we were thinking it would look like, where it's like looking like it's bursting out of his arm. I think it looks more like what I imagine the OSL is going to look like, which OSL stands for Object Source Lighting. So I do think just knowing the progress we made today, I'll probably end up finishing this miniature next week instead of this week. So like I mentioned, we're going to be streaming Monday, Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Come hang out. We'll have fun painting some nerd stuff. So I like the progress we did today. As always, I will put pictures up on my Discord as well as the TOI Discord before I leave, just because this is bothering me. I'm going to just really quick do a dry brushing on the front to kind of change the look here because it's kind of bugging me. Anyway, yeah. On the TOI and on my own Discord. So, but outside of that, thanks so much for joining me and seeing my confused, blubbering self when my mom does something technologically. And it's complete. I had no idea any of that was going to happen. So I'm both very, very shocked and really happy at the same time. So, but yeah, sorry, I cannot help myself in making changes and trying to make this look better. There's so much more that I want to do this miniature. I need to put it down, and I will in just a second because I'm having a ton of fun right now. Like, legitimately, this is probably one of the funnest miniatures I've ever painted. The biggest reason why I painted the the Festering Troll before I did this is because Dirk specifically asked for it. Otherwise I would have done this guy first because I don't know why he just I like him a lot. Guys, we are in the weeds right now. I am so hyper fixated on this, it's not even funny. Should probably stop and go to bed. Actually, I should probably stop and go talk with Matt about our one-shot tomorrow. Oh yeah, by the way, TOI Trials of Imagination stream Tuesdays at 9. Tomorrow I am DMing Elbrith's one-shot, Elbrith being one of the characters. I know, right? So if you would like to come support some awesome people with TOI, or just make fun of me while I DM, stop by. It is 9 o'clock on twitch.com or twitch.tv/2bitlane. So come join us. It's going to be a blast. I'm going to stop painting because if I don't, I'll be here all night and never end. So, but thank you all so much for joining me. I had a blast, and I cannot wait for Wednesday so we can finish this model together. So I hope you all have a great night. Peace out.